Well, thank you for joining us for Everyday Literacy Fun at Home. I'm Linda Clinard, and so honored to be with you again today, and so thankful for all I continue to learn from my family. I have a lot of activities in my book, Family Time Reading Fun, and it's so much fun to see how my family is showing me that they can be fun, and we hope your family finds the same. We're going to start by looking back on the previous 3 weeks. This is week number 4. And so we're so thrilled that you're with us, and we're going to take a peek at what we've done in the previous 3 weeks. So we have been doing so many fun things for the last 3 weeks, but we always start out with some themes that come from the beginning of my book, called Keys to Literacy and Influences on Literacy. The keys are important things to remember about literacy. In the first week, we really emphasized that literacy is more than reading and writing. It's listening, speaking, thinking, reading, and writing. And that everyone has literacy strengths. We were talking about that in week 2, and how important it is to know that literacy requires us to become involved and use words for many purposes and in many ways. So you saw that to be literate, you could do it by playing at the farm. These are all pictures from Pretend City Children's Museum. You could play and use literacy at the grocery store and the cafe. And that's in the real world as well as at Pretend City. The influences are, why do some children learn to read and write so differently? And we emphasize how important it is to look at what they're interested in and what their attitudes are about literacy. How our grandson, from the time he was very young, loved anything with wheels on it, cars, trucks, tractors, you name it. And how important it is to remember that physical factors influence literacy. Being able to see clearly, hear clearly, to have your fine and gross motor skills work, and eating and sleeping habits are very, very important. The first week we did some reading of a peekaboo book, and it was the Pudgy Peekaboo book, and Come With Me, and we did an activity called Sentence Scramble, before, during, and after, and then we filled out a story map. We did all of that. If you didn't see those videos, go back and look. This was on July 2nd. Then there was week number 2 on July 9th, when we shared a video that I read books that are called nonfiction or information books. The first week was on fiction and storybooks, and a funny little book. But this time I read about shapes, and then I read a book called If You Hopped Like a Frog, How Far Could You Go? But with the shapes, I introduced an activity from my book called Picture It, where you listen and draw as you're listening about what you're hearing being read to you. And then If You Hopped Like a Frog, we introduced words, some new words and we also did Picture It. But wow, that boy, if he hopped like a frog, if any of us did, whoo, he could hop from home plate to first base in one jump. But we don't do that, do we? An activity that our grandson loves to play. We chose words from that book and played word speed up, so you could learn those words quickly and have fun doing them. And we enjoyed doing that along with a grid, an I know grid. All that you'll see on that video. And then last week, July 16th, the video, we shared poetry, silly poetry from A Light in the Attic by Shel Silverstein, and The New Kids on the Block, that was by Jack Prolitsky, and did an activity called Letter Art, where you choose a letter and you listen for words and you draw them or you cut them out and glue them on to the page next to that letter. That letter art helps you hear sounds and find words that begin with those sounds. Then we read the funny story by Jeff Foxworthy, funny poems, Dirt on My Shirt. And did an activity called Joking Around, where you make puppets that can say the funny jokes, and that we even have some jokes that we share with you, and you'll be able, in an activity called Laugh It Up, and you can do any of these things, and we are sharing some of those on Facebook with you now, so you'll have the jokes. We also filled out a poetry flower, so look for that and have fun. So let's look at what our themes are for today: the keys to literacy and the influences on literacy development. Keys 4 and 5 in Family Time Reading Fun say literacy is a process, it's not a product, and this is so important. Progress in literacy should not be measured by test scores and grades alone. Well, how can you know if somebody's learning then? Well, here's our little granddaughter, Maddie. When she was just 1 year old, she would pick up paint or pencils and just put it around there, and we put dates on that. And then when she was 3 years old, she kept wanting to draw pictures of her daddy, our son Jeff. And look, she was drawing pictures there. But by the time she was now 5 years old, boy, she's really got her dad there. How do we know she grew over time? We put dates on her work, and that's so important, to put the dates and show how children grow as they learn. This was what our daughter Ann did, and she was only 2 years old. When she was 2 years, 9 months, she would draw a face, stick it out, the arms would stick out the side of the face, and then she'd have some eyes and a mouth. Well, just a couple of months later, look, she had the face, the eyes were wow, and they had legs now. Then she was 3 years old, looks a lot like that, but she's got 8 legs and arms, and she loved to color. And so we can see that even if we keep what children write, like when she was in 1st grade, just from November to April, Anne learned to write in paragraphs and do things like that. How do we know she learned that much? By putting the date of November 1984 and then April 1985. We saw that Anne grew over time. What else do we want to remember? Things that influence children are expectations. We shouldn't expect too much, expect too little. Oh, they can't do it, so don't make them do it. We need to balance our expectations. How do you do that? You do it again by watching what children do and how they're doing it. And remember to stress what they do right and tell them what they're doing right instead of what they're doing wrong. And the other influence is the experiences we give them and the resources, and to use things that are all around them in their world, at home and elsewhere. Menus in a restaurant, computers, signs in the grocery store, newspapers, books, all of those help children with literacy, and we need to use all those resources. So let's look at what we're going to read today and have fun. Today, we're not going to read a story, we're not going to read a poem, but reading happens even in these activity books that we get for children. And this one is the Tonka Chuck and Friends Color Activity Book. Well, what reading happens in there? Look, for a young child, they can either listen, remember listening and speaking are part of literacy. They can listen and speak as we, as parents, as grandparents read to them, or they can read. Use the key below to color the picture and see if they can read the colors, the words red, yellow, and blue. So where they see the one, they do red, 2, yellow, 3, blue. That we want children to also see that they can read just simple directions like correct the numbered dots to finish the picture, or connect them, connect the numbered dots. So if you connect them, what's gonna happen? So there are all these books that still have reading for young children. And as they do all of these things, how many rocks are there? They may just have numbers that they write and not words. Or if we have them looking at signs like this and follow directions again about colors. children are learning to read. And as they learn to read through these activity books, we want them to know that they may need things in order to finish those books. We may help them write a to-do list and what they need to do next. So they could do the activity book, but what else do they need to do? Our daughter Ann loved to write her to-do list up on a board in her room. She'd get up at 7:30, wash her face, and all of those things. So in order to follow directions and in order to help write directions, you can do it by writing a to-do list, and that will help you follow directions. And that page in my book looks like this. Another activity that we have that I love to do, and it's one of the most popular ones that I do when I'm with parents and children, is called Demonstration Station. What does that mean? That means you follow directions, whether they're written or they're read to you, or you look at what they say, and you make something, and you demonstrate, like even a child who wants to help their father with changing a tire. The father demonstrates and gives directions. There are books, fun books, that can help children with following directions. This is the cartoon book. By just looking at a cartoon book, look at what you can learn. And this cartoon book, I should mention, is by James, look at this, Kemsley. James Kemsley wanted us to know how to draw cartoons. So here he says cartoons and comic strips have all one thing in common: expression. So that's where we'll start. So for older children, or maybe younger too, because our grandson loved this one, like this. Simple dots can say lots and heaps in cartoons. Like this, they are just dots, but add a line or two and look what can happen. The eyes are the dots, but look, when the lines go sideways, that could show somebody's angry. Or if they're curved around the eyes, they're worried. Oh my goodness, look at all of these things. They're stunned or suspicious. Look at those. There are other things that he shows just page by page, and then gets very complicated, but guides you through in this whole book. So following directions can help us know how to draw and how to make things together. One thing that is so much fun to do that you saw in this demonstration station picture is one that I'm going to share with you and we're going to make together. And it's called Butterfly Bites. By following directions, we're going to make a butterfly. And you'll be able to eat it. Oh my goodness, how could that happen? We'll see. Now, before we make the butterfly bites, I want you to know the idea for it came from this book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, one of my favorite authors. And there's the caterpillar. And let's see what the caterpillar does. You may have read this book. In the light of the moon, look at this. A little egg lay on a leaf. There it is. A little egg, and there's the moon. Oh my goodness, and one Sunday morning, the warm sun came up, and pop, out of the egg came a tiny and very hungry caterpillar. There's that sun shining. Wow, hungry caterpillars. Let's see what he does. He started to look for some food. Wow, on Monday, he ate through one apple, but he was still hungry. And on Tuesday, he ate through 2 pears, but guess what? He was still hungry. And on Wednesday, he ate through 3 plums, 1, 2, 3. But guess what? He was still hungry. And on Thursday, he ate through 4 strawberries. 1, 2, 3, 4. But he, tell me what it says, he was still hungry. Wow, and Friday, the 5th day, on Friday he ate through 5 oranges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he was still hungry. Well, on Saturday, he ate through 1 piece of chocolate cake, 1 ice cream cone, 1 pickle, 1 slice of Swiss cheese, 1 slice of salami, 1 lollipop, 1 piece of cherry pie, and 1 sausage, and 1 cupcake, and 1 slice of watermelon. Whoa! That's amazing. And the next day was Sunday again. Oh my goodness, and the caterpillar ate through 1 nice green leaf, and after that, he felt much better. Isn't that nice? I'm so glad. Oh, what happens? Now he wasn't hungry anymore, and he wasn't a little caterpillar anymore. He was a big, fat caterpillar. He built a small house called a cocoon around himself, and he stayed inside, wow, more than 2 weeks. Then he nibbled a hole in the cocoon and pushed his way out. What happened? Oh, look at this. He was a beautiful butterfly. That's what the caterpillar did. Turned into a beautiful butterfly. So what are we going to do? We're going to do an activity that's about the very hungry caterpillar, but the directions are right here that tell us we need some celery, we need some cream cheese and pretzels and raisins, and watch out what we're going to make. So let's make a butterfly bites. We're following the directions that say first, get some celery and cut it apart so it's about this size. And then we look for some cream cheese to fill it in. You could use peanut butter, but a lot of people are allergic to peanut butter, so we like to use cream cheese. And we fill in the body of the butterfly, right like that. And then we want to give it wings, don't we? We want it to fly. We could do pretzels to make that happen. So let's give it wings. You can give it 1 or 2 wings. Yeah, we'll give them just the 2 wings for now, because then we can give it eyes with raisins. And we can even give it some antenna. You can either use straight pretzels, or I've got some veggie sticks and thought, we can make a healthy butterfly and have fun. So by following directions, these are the directions, and if mom and dad just read the directions, but when they're visual directions like that, even young children can learn to make something and have fun, and then have a treat. So having fun by demonstrating how to do activities with our children, giving them activities that are visual so they can follow them along if they're not a reader yet. But there are other ways that children can help with reading and following directions. This little cookbook, the Cookie Lovers Cookie Cookbook, is one that our family loved as our children were growing up. And by following directions 1 step at a time, they can learn and be able to follow directions for cooking, for making cartoons, for doing so many other things. And they can also learn if we help them break up by steps. There's an activity in my book called Break It Up. This is our granddaughter Hazel. She was supposed to retell a story, and to be able to retell a story, how can you do it? You can break that up too. just helping children know one step at a time they can learn so much by carefully following directions, whether they're visual or they're in writing. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. I am so glad that you joined us, and we want you to know that if you either comment or like or share or ask a question below this video on the OC website, that your name could be entered into a raffle to win a copy of my book, and you will hear from Orange County United Way if you're chosen. Thank you for coming.